So I'm sweaty and panting as I get back to my apartment, and I walk inside, and I'm so grateful to feel the air conditioning because it's a hot June day, and I've just come back from a run. I am not a runner, but I have started going for short 10-minute runs over the course of the summer to try and get ready for this race that I've signed up for. My friend, Brandy, has talked me into doing this run, and I know very little about it, but I agreed to it months and months prior to this because of her enthusiasm, and she really wanted to do it together, so I just signed up on faith, and it's now a week before this race, and I'm back from my run, so I figure I should read up on the email I got from the race to find out stuff about race day, so like what heat I'm in, what time I need to show up, things to bring, helpful stuff. And so I get out my laptop and I look it up, and as I'm reading this over, it does start to dawn on me that I don't know too much about the actual obstacles of this race. Like, I know it's a 5K run and that there are obstacles, but not much beyond that. So I go to the website, and the race is called a Spartan Sprint, and so there's a lot, or the website itself is kind of vague, so I go to Google and start looking up obstacle course runs and Spartan Sprint and Tough Mudder, because it's all very similar, and I read about there's so much climbing involved, like climbing walls, climbing ropes, climbing monkey bars. I had to crawl under barbed wire, like real barbed wire. There's a fire jump with actual flames. The more I read, the more my stomach sinks and my chest gets tight, and I am starting to really become afraid. My short 10-minute runs that I do maybe once a week, and I've been doing a bit of like Muay Thai fitness class to try and get in shape, probably has not been enough exercise for what this race entails. And so I jump back to Google and I start searching like obstacle course run advice and like Spartan Sprint tips, because I'm desperate and I think I need to do something really fast in the next week to get ready for this race. And my stomach gets in knots and my chest feels tight, and I feel like I can't breathe because the headlines that pop up are horrifying. It's things like, man drowns in Tough Mudder, and like, woman gets 2nd and 3rd degree burns from falling into fire jump. And racers get E. coli after crawling through contaminated mud. So I'm just losing it. And so I start pacing back and forth in my apartment. I can't breathe. And so I text my friend Brandy, who's doing this race with me, and I just send her a message. I am so scared. We are going to die. And so a few moments later, she texts me back, and her response is very simple. It's just LOL. And so I talked to her about it later, and she thought I was joking. She didn't realize the severity of my panic in this moment, but it was not comforting, and it did not help me calm down. So again, my stomach is in knots, and I'm just freaking out. So I text another friend, and they tell me comforting words like, there's safety regulations for obstacle course runs, and they test these kinds of things so that people will be safe, and you're not going to die. So I calm down, but the fear is still with me, and as I go to bed that night, I'm lying in bed, staring at my ceiling, and the thoughts won't stop. Like, I'm gonna get sick from the mud, or I'm gonna cut myself in barbed wire, and maybe someone else has already cut themselves in that barbed wire, so I'm gonna get some kind of disease, or I'm gonna fall off something, I'm gonna break a leg, or I'm just gonna die. So I spend the next week just trying to suppress these thoughts and think of it as future Stephanie's problem. But then race day arrives and is no longer future Stephanie's problem. It is my problem. So I eat a good breakfast, meet up with Brandy, and she drives us to the race. And the course has been set up on a ski hill, because if it wasn't hard enough to do 5K with obstacles, they wanted to make it worse by putting it along a ski hill that we had to run up and down. And so as we're driving, she's comfortable, she's singing to the music, she's telling me about her week, and I'm just sitting there gripping the side of my seat, my whole body tense, my shoulders tight, as I'm trying to give myself an internal pep talk, like, you can do this, you won't be alone, Brandy will be with you the whole race, you won't die, like, you can do this. And so as we pull up on this sort of dirt road, there's staff members in these bright red t-shirts, and they wave our car over, and they show us where to park in this field. And so we're there. I get out of the car, and this wall of heat just hits me. It is so hot. It is 9 a.m. in the morning, and it's already 20 degrees out. So we make our way over to registration. We give them our names, we get our racing headbands with a number on it, and then we make our way to the bag check, and we deposit our phone, our wallet, our valuables with the bag check, and then we make our way to the starting line. And the starting line looks like a pen, almost like where you might put livestock or cattle. They have metal fences along either side, and they've built this 4-foot-tall wooden fence along the back that you have to climb over to get to the start line. And at the other end, there's this inflatable black arch with the word START at the top, and underneath it is this guy dressed in a costume with a breastplate and the leather skirt and the helmet with the plume, and he has a megaphone in one hand and a shield in the other, and he's yelling at us things like, "Are you ready?" And I'm there no, no, no. But the other people around me, as it starts to fill up and more people arrive, they're very excited and they're joining in the cheers. And he tells us that when he says, "Who am I?" we're supposed to say, "I am Spartan." And so he yells at us "Who am I?" And the audience, or the people around me, are "I am Spartan." And Brandy's getting into it. Everyone is so excited. And I just feel like my body is lead. I do not want to do this, but I feel like I can't bail now, and I can't breathe. It's so hot, I'm already sweating, and I haven't even started running yet. And then they start doing this cheer where it's "Oorah, oorah, oorah," and then he counts down 3, 2, 1, and then blows his air horn, and then we all start moving forward. And so Brandy and I agreed that we don't need to be first. We're just going to stay together, try to have fun. So we let the more aggressive, competitive runners get ahead of us, and we sort of stay to the side, and the race starts up a hill. So it's a 45-degree incline. And when we get to the top, it's our first obstacle. And so it's this mesh, and we have to crawl under it, and it's pretty high, and it's grassy, not muddy. So I'm that's not so bad. And the next one is a 4-foot wall that we have to go over, and then another wall we have to go under. And these obstacles seem pretty easy. So I'm starting to feel a tiny bit calmer, because if the rest is like this, maybe I can handle it. So the path takes us down this hill, and we get a bit of shade from the sun, because it's all trees, and there's a little bit of a breeze, but then the path curves back up the hill, and it's a sharper incline than what we started at the first time, and it's in the direct sunlight. And people are showing signs of the heat. Everyone's sweating. No one is running up this hill. Everyone's walking. It's too steep and it's too hot. And there's people holding their sides like they have runner's cramps. And there's a guy eating a mustard pack, because apparently the salt and mustard helps with runner's cramps, or so he says. And so we're walking up, and when we get to the top, my breath is taken by the view. It's all blue skies and green valleys and lush trees for as far as I can see. And I just say to Brandy, at least the view is nice. And we keep going, and we make it to this obstacle that's like a set of monkey bars that's like a point in the middle. It's like a V. And we have to climb up the one side and climb down the other. And Brandy goes first, and I follow closely behind her. And when we get to the top, she makes it over pretty easily, but I get stuck. It's 12 or more feet in the air. It's pretty high up, and there's no safety net, no harness, and it's literally just a bar. There's no ledge to sit on, no handholds, and there's other racers sort of pushing up beside me, trying to get past me. So to get my leg over, there isn't really room, and they're kind of kicking me with their leg as they're getting over, and so I'm just feeling really unsafe and really scared to be up that high. And Brandy's there on the other side waiting for me before climbing down, and she's just saying, Steph, just take your space, take your time, you can do this, get one leg over, and then the rest will be easy. So I take her advice, I kind of position myself in the middle of this monkey bar and get my leg over, and so I'm straddling this bar, and I get my hands in position so I can get my other leg over, and then we climb down together. So we keep going through this race, and we're doing these obstacles together, and we get about halfway through, and then Brandy says to me, Steph, I'm not feeling good. And so there's a nice shaded area, so we go sit down, and she's in this black t-shirt, her color's a little off, she says she feels dizzy and nauseous. The heat is definitely getting to her. But we didn't sign up for this to be first, we just want to finish. So we take a seat, and I'm like, there's no rush, let's just take our time. So we sit in the shade for a good 20 minutes. But that 20 minutes goes by, and she's still not feeling good, and she says to me, I think I have to quit. And so there's a small part of me that's kind of relieved. I'm like, hey, I can quit with her. We don't have to finish this race. But she makes it very clear that she expects me to finish for both of us. So she tells me she's gonna go down to the finish line and rest up in the medic tent and meet me there for when I finish. And she's telling me, like, you're going. So my legs feel like lead. I do not want to leave her. I drag myself away very reluctantly. And the next station I get to is a set of monkey bars. And it's taking people a long time to get through it, so this line has formed. So I basically just have to stand in line at this obstacle and let the dread sink in that I am now doing this race alone. And so when I get to the front of the line, I can't even reach the monkey bars. They're so high. This guy behind me has to lift me up so I can grab them. And then I make it 2 bars before I slide off because my hands are so sweaty because it is so freaking hot. And so every time you fail an obstacle in the race, you have to go and do 20 burpees. So I go and do my 20 burpees, and then I go on to the next obstacle. And again, it's a 7-foot tall wall with no handholds. You're just supposed to like grab it and then pull yourself up on sheer upper body strength. And I don't have that much upper body strength. So I'm standing in this line, looking at this wall, thinking like, how am I gonna get over this? I don't wanna keep doing burpees all day. And this dread again is setting in, but I see this group ahead of me helping each other. They give each other a boost up, someone goes around to the other side, and they help the person safely get down, and I'm thinking, if that's allowed, why can't I ask for help? So I do. They give me a boost up, and as I'm at the top of the wall, I just hear someone call out, "Go, Steph!" And I'm looking around, and I don't recognize anyone, but I'm like, maybe there's another Stephanie. It's a fairly common name around here. So I just sort of take the support and get over the wall, and I'm feeling better that I was able to ask for help. So I keep going, and I fail at a bunch more obstacles, but I surprise myself by actually being able to do a lot of them. And I get to the dreaded barbed wire crawl that I was worried about, and I get down on my stomach, and I sort of pull myself forward by my forearms, and it's this weird, awkward army crawl because I desperately want my head to be away from the mud, but my body to be low enough so I don't get cut from the barbed wire. And so I just kind of shamble awkwardly on the ground forward, about like 5 meters, until I finally make it to the end. And then as I get up, I had to be really careful because I got so excited to be done it that I almost cut myself as I'm leaving the barbed wire, but thankfully I made it through unscathed. And so I keep going, and I make it to the end, and then there's a fire jump, and as I'm running up towards it, I notice that the flames seem kind of high in the middle, but it's burned down more at the sides. So I go to the left, and it's basically just coals. And so it's very easy to clear, and I make it, and as I finish it, I know it's the last obstacle, and I just run for the finish line, and there's spectators who've gathered around the end, and they're just cheering, and I feel so elated. I'm so excited that I seem to have survived this event, and I cross the finish line, and there's a staff member there who puts a medal around my neck, and I'm handed some water and an energy bar, and I'm so excited. And so I go to find Brandy, and as I'm scanning the faces, she's not there. And all that joy, all that relief evaporates. Did she get worse? Does she have to go to the hospital? Does she actually have heat stroke? Am I a bad friend for leaving her? Like, I don't have a phone. She doesn't have a phone. How am I going to find her? And so I frantically start pacing back and forth behind the spectators near the finish line, just trying to frantically find her. And thankfully, I look up, and she's crossing the finish line. But I'm very confused. How did she get there? So she gets the medal around her neck, and she runs over, and she gives me a big hug. And I say to her, like, "Brandy, what happened?" And so she explains to me that she stayed in the shade for another 10 minutes, but there's another woman who was there who had heat stroke and was on her back crying because it was so bad. And she saw this woman, and she thought to herself, "I'm not that sick." And she made a decision right then and there to finish the race. And so she could get close enough behind me to see me and cheer for me, but I didn't know she was there, so we never actually got to meet up until that moment at the end of the finish line. And so we gave each other a hug, and we go to get hosed off because we're both covered in mud. And this awe sort of starts to sink in as I realize that we're capable of so much more than we think. Thank you.